There is an apparent shift in the US policy towards Pakistan and India, and that is a major issue that is being debated all around the globe, in fact. Until recently, the US has been pretty pro-India, even at the cost of Pakistan. And in perhaps a unipolar world, despite being in a unipolar world, Pakistan had no other option but to go over to the Chinese and the Russian camp. That seems changing, at least for now. Americans, Washington is cozying up to Pakistan. The first signal came when General or now Field Marshal Asim Munir was invited to White House for a lunch. That was not a mere recognition of Pakistan as an important player in this part of the world. That was also, to a great extent, a recognition to the Asim Munir-led government in Pakistan from Washington. And it had its consequences. But the strange thing was that why all of a sudden Americans are cozying up to Pakistan at the cost of India this time. President Trump has been pushing out one tweet after the other. In fact, a week before, he came out with a very interesting tweet, not just saying that Pakistan and the US have reached a trade agreement, but also announcing that US is going to actively help Pakistan in unearthing its huge and massive oil reserves. Now that was interesting. And then there was another very teasing comment by Mr. Trump. He said, who knows that over the next few years, India would be buying oil from Pakistan. That was teasing for India. Now, why is this happening? That is a big question surrounding this debate. And do we really have that sort of massive oil resources in Pakistan? The search for oil and gas in Pakistan, of energy resources in Pakistan, has been off and on for quite some time. For ages, if one is not wrong. Because despite everything, despite a slowed down economy, the fact remains that energy resources are a major contributor to our import bill. Last financial year, if I'm not wrong, it amounted to something like $11.3 billion that Pakistan had to spend on importing energy from various sources. So Pakistan has definitely been looking for domestic resources, and there have been lack of domestic resources in Pakistan. Until a point in time, it was the Sui gas coming out from Sui in Balochistan, going all around the country. Now that is a dwindling source, and not much major finds have been reported from Pakistan. But in recent years, there have been some reports. If I'm not wrong, sometimes in 2019, while Imran Khan's government was at the helm in Islamabad, Khan Sahab came out with a bold statement that we have hit a major offshore oil reserves in Pakistan. There was some speculation that it could be the fourth largest in the world, or else the largest in Asia. Now, the largest in Asia to me seems a big question mark, because Asia also includes Saudi Arabia. Asia also includes Emirates, Qatar. So in the presence of them, Pakistan to find and announce that the largest reserves have been found in Asia in Pakistan, that to me is questionable. But still that was announced. But then what happened all of a sudden, and there are some rumors that there was a lot of politics that got involved into it, not only domestic but international as well, that Mr. Khan had to chew his words. And within a few hours, the Ministry of Petroleum came out with a statement saying that news or that announcement was wrong, and Pakistan did not hit really any big energy reserves, of offshore energy reserves. So it became apparent that that chapter has been closed. But it was not really closed. It was still open. And that continued until recently, I think last September 2024, there was another major announcement. And at this time, Shahbaz Sharif government was in power in Islamabad. And they again came out that a massive resource has been found in the offshore. But the problem with finding out, even if one agrees to that this resource has been found out, and there are question marks to it, that this resource has been found out, there is always a gap between finding a resource, and bringing it off the ground. So having resources is a different thing, and bringing those resources up on the ground and use it is completely another thing, because this requires hefty investments. There have been some indication that perhaps $5 billion were required to explore, to bring out those resources. Now, when last September that was announced, the find of this massive resource, it was probably the same Kekara 1, which Khan Sahab also had announced in 2019. And then it was still being discussed. Now, perhaps ExxonMobil, Eni, OGDCL, PPL, all were involved in this exploration process. But then perhaps the investment there was so huge an investment was required in it that it was taken back, and not much activity was seen until Mr. Trump came out with this announcement. Now, that was a very, very interesting announcement. For Trump to get involved, or for the US to get involved in finding and bringing out the oil reserves of Pakistan, was something that was not much in minds until then, because none of the oil majors were keen to get back into Pakistan. In fact, most have been exiting Pakistan one after the other. One could recall Union Texas Pakistan, ExxonMobil, Shell, Eni. All these had left Pakistan over the last decade or so. And one of the basic reasons behind it was apparently the security scenario. In fact, if I'm recalling correct, Musaddiq Malik, the then petroleum minister, also said it in a briefing, in a National Assembly briefing, that security is a major concern for these oil majors, who, despite knowing that this asset is present in Pakistan, are not ready to get back to Pakistan. Now, nothing has changed since. Security situation has not improved in Pakistan. In fact, it has gone worse, if one could say it's so. Balochistan is not better. KP is in a bad scenario. So what interests Mr. Trump and the US to get back into this game in Pakistan? That remains a question to be answered. One apparent reason behind it could be that although in case the US gets involved into it in a big way, that could also mean that the security situation will have to improve. Because whatever was happening in Pakistan, as far as security is concerned, most geopolitical strategists think that those were not only led by domestic scenario, those disturbances were also because of external interference in Pakistan's domestic scenario. Now, if the US gets involved into it, that could improve. That would be of great asset in that sense. Secondly, if you recall one photograph of the US ambassador in Pakistan visiting Gwadar some about 6-8 months or a year back, that was very significant. That what took the US ambassador to Gwadar, despite the bad security condition. So all these perhaps lead to a conclusion that some changes could be in offing in security situation of Pakistan. But there's another interesting fact to it. Why at this very moment the US is getting involved in Pakistan? Some people are thinking and are questioning that is Mr. Trump using Pakistan as a pawn to pressurize India to yield to his demands while trade talks are on between New Delhi and Washington. And then the subsequent question is that if it really is the case, no one knows the answer, to be fair. I don't know the answer to it. But there are speculations that this could be one of the reasons that Mr. Trump is trying to use Pakistan's massive resources, which is still questionable, to put pressure on India so that it yields, it opens up its markets, it stops buying from Russia, oil, defense defense equipment and instead goes for F-35s, US oil from the US, as Pakistan has been pushed to buy from US right now. So that is a big question, that is that the real reason behind this all of a sudden this bonhomie towards Islamabad? And if that is the case, we have to be careful, because we have been stung by this off and on sort of relationship from Washington very often in past. We have to be careful before taking our due course, that hopefully this is not the same scenario that will be used and then would be thrown like a napkin, like a tissue paper, as we have been used in past during the Afghanistan crisis from 1979 onwards, during the Cold War, when Pakistan became a CENTO and CETO member, and during Zia era, during Musharraf era, when Pakistan was declared a non-NATO ally. But despite all these things, as soon as the situation changed, Pakistan was literally put into a dustbin. So we have to be careful that this is not that scenario. And if this is a real bonhomie, then it's a wonderful thing. Let's go for it. But at the same time, we should not at any cost displease China. China remains our friend forever.